Hi everyone, I'm Xander and welcome to my channel. Before we get into what this piece is, today's session is about, I would like to pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people on whose lands that I am broadcasting today, to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to any other elder who might be watching this or otherwise here in the space. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. This is stolen land, and it's really important that we acknowledge that. Today's session, I wasn't really going to do a session on Feels Like Home, which is a song that I wrote for Felix of the Stray Kids, which is a Korean band. But I watched their Maniac Tour concert last night, and it really inspired me to come back and talk about what that song was about and why I wrote it, and anyway, other aspects related to that. I won't be singing the song as part of this one. Quite usually when I do one of these, I will sing the songs or recite the poems so that you know what it sounds like. This is a song, I won't be singing it, but I will be going over the words. If you want to hear the song, I'll put a link to where the song is on my channel because I have it as a separate piece. And so I'll just put a link to that so that you can go to the song and see the song in its entirety without needing to see all of this around it. It Feels Like Home is something that I wrote for Felix of the Stray Kids. What happened was I had recently joined JYP's Bubble app, and the only two I could only afford two, and choosing two from these Stray Kids can be really tricky and difficult because from my perspective, I like them all for different reasons, and I like different aspects of them all, and they come together as a whole quite well. And when I have to sit down and figure out which two I was going to follow, the two I ended up choosing for a variety of different reasons, because when I sat down and thought about it, they are my two biases, are Hyunjin and Felix. And I wrote a poem for Hyunjin which is called The Moon is So Pretty, and that's also on my blog. I may do something about that separately. And I wrote the poem Dinner Mugs from posts that Hyunjin did, but this isn't about that piece of work. After doing those two poems, I was looking at the Bubble feed for Felix, and I thought, well, I would like to write something for Felix as well. And when I was in the process of thinking, what will I write for Felix? Will it be a poem? Will it be a song? What will it be? I happened to see a clip on YouTube, and the clip was a concert in Seoul, and it was after Felix's grandmother had passed, and he was really emotional on stage. And watching him being emotional on stage inspired me in so many different ways, because it reminded me of when my father passed and of how hard it was for me to be emotional, even when I was by myself. I mean, there are so many things that prevent you in the society that I grew up in. You don't cry. Crying is looked down on in so many ways, shapes, and forms. It's belittled. You might do it on your own over in a corner where nobody could see you, but you were never emotional in company, even in the company of friends. And one of my bosses used to call crying emotional blackmail. My father, if I was crying when I was a child, used to tell me that I had no reason to cry, that I should be happy. And so all of this self-talk was about not showing that kind of emotion, about channeling it into other areas, about not expressing it. And here was Felix expressing his emotions quite honestly and openly on stage. And I found that admirable. I found that to be a strength of character, that he could do that so easily and be so held in the process of doing that, because the other members of Stray Kids were around him. He was able to get himself back to a calm within a reasonable time from the clip that I saw, which wasn't the whole concert, it was just a short clip of that part. And it was really something that I found inspiring. So I wrote the song about that, about Felix expressing his emotions on stage, and at the same time about my inability to do the same in private. And the song is primarily from the perspective of Felix. However, it is at the same time the perspective of me watching Felix. So you've got a double perspective there. And the way that it feels or felt to me when I was writing it and singing it was like a tempest at sea. You have this moment of calm when everything is relatively smooth, and it may not necessarily be sunny, but you've got this particular calm, and you're in a safe harbor. And then you journey out into the open ocean, and the waves are quite a lot larger, and you start to navigate the changes in that. And the wind picks up and it starts to rain, and then you have a storm blowing, and you've got all these things going everywhere, and you don't have firm ground beneath your feet because you've got waves moving you in all directions. And then after that, you are perhaps have other smaller vessels come and help tow you to shore. But you end up back in the safe harbor that you started with. So that's essentially the feel of the song. So when it starts, the passage that it starts with is, "I love the way you make me feel when you hug me. I know I'm not alone. I love the way you make me feel when you're with me, because it feels like home. It feels like home." So what I saw with Felix and the other Stray Kids is that Felix's safe harbor was Hyunjin and Shungbin and Bangchan and the other members of Stray Kids. And they would go and hug him, or would be around him and show an obvious presence, and he would be anchored by that presence. And the second part goes, "I can feel and cry freely. I don't have to hold it in. I can rage and scream and yell, and it won't sound like it did. I don't have to pretend because my mask is coming off. With you, I'm free to be me." And that's where the double thing starts to come into it. It still feels at this particular point, but I'm also reflecting on my masks. Because when he was on stage, he was doing that. He was feeling and crying freely. He didn't have to hold it in. He was expressing how he felt. And it was part of the whole experience. There wasn't any artificiality about it. And the next bit starts with, "Why can't I cry?" And that is a double thing. I was talking about why can't I cry? Because I was having problems with that. And at the same time, I was also thinking, well, what is such a big deal about Felix crying on stage? Why can't Felix cry? Why must my sun just keep on shining? Clouds refuse to pass by. And my heart just keeps on piling, fills me up. Every port overflows till there's just drowning. Never ending, always more. Head can't think from pounding. A flash of bread, my blood just keeps on raging. And that flash of dread, many eyes that seek engaging. That's that overwhelming aspect of when you're really emotional and you know you're really emotional. And then you have this particular storm of additional emotions about crying, about doing this in a public arena or even doing it in private and sort of having your self-talk. Because we have so many things we need to address when we're expressing ourselves freely. Because in a society that expects you to behave with a particular decorum, when you're behaving in something that goes against that decorum, there's this expectation of consequences. And there are these other things that start to go. The crying can lead to anger very easily, for example, or frustration. It's just like, I'm doing this again. Why do I always do this? This is so bad. And so you have all of that kind of aspect, which can send you into a spiral. And so the next part is, till you're just there, a touch, a sound, my anchor, a show of care. Around me now my harbor, and I know I'm held, your arms no place safer. Such release, heartfelt, sun returns from its shelter. Of course, the references to the sun, references to Felix being the sunshine of the group. And that is a reference to basically the group realizes Felix is upset and one or more members of them come over and help him to get from his tempest of emotions to a safe harbor, which is why it starts the same way that, so it ends the same way it starts. I love the way you make me feel when you hug me. I know I'm not alone. I love the way you make me feel when you're with me, because it feels like home. It feels like home. So that's basically the story behind the song. And with the song itself, the YouTube clip of the song, I didn't hashtag. I was uncomfortable with hashtagging because this was about a song that I wrote about Felix, and I didn't want to have any negative associations be put onto Felix or the band because of something I wrote, so I kept it separate. But I do want to acknowledge that it is written for Felix. It was inspired by Felix, and it encapsulates how strong I felt that Felix was in that particular moment. And how honest and how much integrity as a person he held in that particular moment. And that's what inspired me to write the song. So I think that's about all I wanted to say about the song. I hope you liked the piece. I hope you found it interesting. There will be a link to the song. There will be a link to my blog with the lyrics to the song down below. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.